Hey guys, this is Clinton Jeff from UnleashThePhones.com, and here's a quick video review of the Samsung Galaxy camera. The Samsung Galaxy camera is a pretty huge little point-and-shoot dedicated camera running Android 4.1 Jelly Bean on an insanely powerful 1.4 GHz quad-core processor with Wi-Fi and GPS, among other things. And there's also a SIM card slot right at the bottom for a micro SIM, and you also find SD card slot right there and the battery as well. So yeah, it is pretty interesting. I'm just gonna close that slot up right now. And you have that huge screen at the back. It's a 4.8-inch touchscreen. I'm gonna switch that on so that I can show you a little bit more about that. It is quite impressive, though the screen is unusually large for a camera, in my opinion. But as you can see, it does look quite beautiful. So we'll get back to the display later on, but just to give you a quick tour of the hardware, on one side you have that little loudspeaker right there that's actually quite loud, and you have the flash button right there that you can press to get the flash out and manually close it. At the top you have the power and screen lock button, just like on an Android phone. You can use it to switch off the screen. And on this side you have the headphone jack and a micro USB charging port that is covered by a plastic flap, as you can see, and a little space for the lanyard cable over there too. You also have these zoom controls at the front like a normal camera. Of course, the dedicated camera key. The build quality is actually quite solid overall, and I really like the finish that they've used on this device. It really does feel quite solid. At the bottom, you also have a tripod mount and the battery slot, which I showed you before. Talking about the most important part, you have a 23 mm equivalent wide-angle lens at the front that can extend up to 21x worth of zoom. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but it is quite impressive, very close to super zoom territory. But just to show you the UI, you have Android 4.1 Jelly Bean running with Samsung Special Touches UI. You can tap the camera icon and tap the power icon to close it, for example. Tapping on the power icon will unlock the screen and bring out the camera, just as you can see right there. The zoom does add a lot of weight to the camera, and you can't prop it up because it will fall down onto its zoom. And as you can see, it can go quite large. So that is something you should note. You can't prop it up just to take a picture. Um, but it's not too bad. It's basically your usual little camera. Just to talk a little bit about the software, you have Android 4.1 Jelly Bean with Samsung's TouchWiz UI running on top of a 4.8-inch screen running at 1280 by 720 HD resolution, which does look quite good, and that's probably the reason why it's such a large device after all. As you can see, the UI moves around quite fast, and you have these nice little toggles here at the bottom. The camera toggle stays right there in the corner, and even the menu is really fast, and you find that you have apps like Instagram and everything installed right out of the box. And Android 4.1.1 does not have any problems as such, and it can also multitask pretty well. So no complaints as such. You also have a little edit key at the side, and you have Google Now, which does work out pretty well once it learns more about you, and you can also ask it Mary questions and such. So yeah, it does do a great job of running Android Jelly Bean. No, there really are no complaints as such, and you have a couple of pre-installed apps like Samsung's Photo Wizard app where you can edit your pictures taken right on the device itself. Or if you are just like me, you can use Instagram, but if you need more effects, this is the app to go to. Speaking of Instagram, it's also worth noting that Instagram runs in portrait mode on the Galaxy camera. There are a couple apps that run in portrait mode, but you can switch over to landscape, so it's no uh, big issue, I guess. The music player is just usual Samsung UI. You also have the headphone jack, so you can actually use it to store your music if you want music on your camera on the go. Maybe I don't know, in case you don't want to store music on your device. There's also Samsung's S Planner app for calendar replacement and all the usual organization apps like the calculator and messaging. What's funny about messaging though is that you have the on-screen keyboard, and it is oddly comfortable to use on the Galaxy camera because it is a really large screen. And you can also use it in portrait if you're thinking of being a little experimental. And the little ridge at at the back does help you support the weight of the camera, as you can see. So that is interesting, though I don't know how many text messages you're going to send from this device. So yeah, you can send text messages, you can send MMSs, but you can't make calls. Apart from that, you have Samsung's All Share and Groupcast apps, and even their S-Voice app in case you want to use that instead of Google Now. And S-Voice does a pretty good job. You can also use it to take a picture or to tell it to zoom in or zoom out, which is kind of cool. It's a little gimmicky, but it's a cool party trick, I guess. Apart from that, what else can I show you? You have YouTube, Chrome, and all the usual Android Jelly Bean apps pre-installed. You also have Samsung's Paper Artist that is better known on the Galaxy Note because it's a drawing app. But it's nice to have this here, I guess. Now that I've showed you the Android UI, I should show you the camera UI, which is completely different from the rest of Android. Samsung has made a completely different UI for the Galaxy camera. As you can see, it has quick access to all the features that you want. You have the quick mode selection button right there. You have the image button, and you have the video mode that you can tap on just to start recording video immediately and press stop when you're done with the video. There's also different modes. There's auto, smart, and expert. The smart mode has various scenarios that you can choose to take a picture in, like fireworks, light trace, beauty face mode, or best photo mode, continuous shot, and again best face. Landscape is very useful as well, and there's macro, which is really fun to play with. There's also action freeze for fast movement and richer tones, and there's also a panorama mode, which can be very useful for 8 pictures together. There's also a waterfall mode, which needs a tripod, a silhouette mode, which does a pretty okay job, and a sunset mode that really makes the colors pop, and of course the night mode again. So yeah, it is useful enough depending on quick access to modes and configuring a camera. There's also expert mode. That's a lot more complicated where you can play in with your aperture settings, for example, and get them just right as you'd want. There's also the uh, brightness setting, the exposure settings, shutter speed, and a lot of other stuff. Some of it is over my head because it the UI is quite intimidating. Uh, but it does a good enough job in case you really want to tweak every aspect of your camera. And in some cases, you will actually have to tweak these modes because the auto mode does an okay job, but you will still want to push the camera to its limits, and that's where this mode comes in. So I'm just gonna go back to the auto mode right now. The auto mode has nothing to configure. I have a couple quick toggles at the top for voice navigation to take pictures with voice or flash or self timer mode and a couple others. There's also built-in features like sepia, black and white, or negative, or vintage old photos, for example. It can be very cool if you want to quickly take a certain type of picture. And it does a good enough job. It is quite fast, as you can see. So just to give you a quick idea of the picture quality, the 16 megapixel camera does take some pretty good shots, and it is a lot better than what you would get from most smartphones. And the 23 wide angle lens does come in very useful, and you can go all the way down to ISO 11 sensitivity, which means you can get some pretty amazing shots. Though I should say that all the pictures look quite nice on the 1.8, the 4.8, sorry, inch display, but they do look a little problematic when you look at them on a proper computer display. There are some color fringes, for example, that show up as purple or blue drop shadows, and sometimes you have a little issues with focusing, and where images end up a lot softer than you would like. But we have more details about that on the blog. Yeah, 4.8-inch screen does look quite nice, but like I said, they images do look a lot nicer on the screen than they do on a computer screen. For example, the more you zoom in using the zoom lens, the softer the image does look. But if you're wondering about the display, yep, it is quite good looking. It has wide viewing angles, as you can see, and images look great on them. But like I said, the camera is a little bit problematic, as nice as it is. It is a lot larger than the Galaxy S3, and image quality is a lot better than the small sensor on most cell phone cameras that you get nowadays. But there is a little problem with the softness. I would like images to be a lot more sharper than you get with the Galaxy camera right now. Maybe there'll be a software update that'll bring it along. And video though does look a lot nicer. We have a lot of that on the blog. We have camera samples and such. And Android 4.1 Jelly Bean can definitely be useful. And battery life is also not too bad because the camera does like to sleep when you're not using it. So it does sleep a lot, but you can turn it on just by tapping on the button right there, and you'll see it switches back on pretty fast. So yeah, guys, if you have any questions, let me know right in the comment section below, or check out our detailed review over at unleashthephones.com. There's a lot that you need to read about this camera, so do check out our detailed review. And thanks for watching, guys.